The oceans of the world have separated the continents. But at the same time, I realized that the oceans are also responsible for uniting the continent. When I got introduced to Goa's history and history of the world in general and history of maritime trade from times immemorial, I was really fascinated to basically notice this paradox of the ocean. The ocean which separates also unites. The word globalization is very new, maybe in the last maybe 10 years or more. But I realized that globalization had started happening perhaps 2,500 years BC, when the ships, the Arab ships, were coming to the ports of the Indus Valley civilization, to Lothal and other ports. The globalization had already started. And ocean is also actually responsible for creating the life. Human beings originated, the life originated in the ocean, and civilizations basically developed on the banks of the oceans and the rivers of the world. So the ocean has seen it all. The ocean has nurtured life, created civilizations, destroyed civilization. So in a way, the history of human civilization is dissolved in the ocean. That almost about 60% of the world's business happened in the Indian Ocean, and things started coming to Goa. Goa must have been the gateway for many things. Goa was a gateway for India, for the chilies, perhaps for the technique of making bread, for the tomatoes, for the potatoes, for the sitafal, for the kaju, even the marigold flowers, which we use in every Indian worship, in temples, and we use it in marriages, and the temple flower, which is there in front of every Buddhist shrine and a Hindu temple. This has come from Central America, from Hawaii and other places. So I realized that Goa was, in a way, had a very rich history of maritime trade, and many things have sort of come into this great subcontinent through the port of Goa, and of course also the ports of Kochi and Muziris. I started having dialogues with history through my work. History is a very abstract thing in a way. It's a formless thing. It's a narration of something which happened. We cannot really actually see what happened, but we only know the reports of people who wrote about what happened based on archaeological surveys and based on many other evidences. But for me, history started talking to me, and then I decided to give a kind of a concrete form to this formless concept of history, and history started sort of speaking through my works.
Academic part.
This was a very interesting story. I went to Jaipur for an art camp where there were very important artists like Raza. And usually when you go to an art camp, you almost decide what you're going to do in advance and you just go there, do it, and that's it. But I decided I will not think about anything. Let me just go absolutely raw, absolutely fresh, and I will decide what I'm going to do when I'm in Jaipur. So I requested the organizers to take me, just give me a car to take me to the market, and I started walking in the bazaar of Jaipur. And I came across one shop which was selling products created out of used tires. I just liked the material. I had not thought about what to do with it. The material was fascinating. There were strips of tires, there were some kind of sheets of tires, and they were bought by farmers to make baskets, they were bought by cobblers to make shoes. And I found the material fascinating. I just fell in love with the material, and I bought a few thousand rupees worth of this material and started thinking, what do I do with this now? And then a thought appeared to me. I said, on the roads of Rajasthan, the tires of the trucks get worn out, and so do the soles of the camel feet, because the camels are very much used for transportation in Rajasthan. So I decided to create a camel foot using used truck tires. And then the idea caught on. I have made sculptures of horses, I have made sculptures of chilies, I have made sculptures of tortoise, and many other sculptures, including a carpet which I call the flying carpet, because it is very true that the world today flies on tires.
Come here.
I made an installation with I think about 30-40 kilos of chilies which was spread on the beach, because basically, as you know, Goa must have been a gateway for chilies to enter India, because they were brought in 1510 or so by the Portuguese on the shores of Goa. Like most Goan men, I love to go to buy fish to the fish market. It's my very favorite hobby and necessity. I saw this fish cutting board in the fish market when I bought fish the other day. And this board has been used by the people who cut fish for you at least for about 3 years. And the man who cuts fish told me that about 100,000 fish must have been cut on this board. And you can see all the marks of the knife, and this wood smells of fish because so much of juice of fish has gone into it. It even smells fish. So I thought I will acquire this. So I bought it from them, and now I'm going to create some kind of an object out of this. So I've been looking at this for last few days, and then I decided that I'm just going to cut a very simple fish form where I just draw a fish like this on it, the way I have drawn here. And this area here will be a few inches down, and this area it will be plain, it will not have these fish marks. So we will have basically the fish created with just the marks of the knife. That's going to be my work. And I think first I was planning to do a fisherman's head and many ideas, and ultimately I came down to this very simple form. Last time I did something like this, I tried my own marks, but I think the marks have the signature of the man who cuts the fish, his style. So you put the marks and he puts the marks, it's totally different. Yeah. So I would like that man to have the marks. आंबट ठीक टोमॅटो घालतात
टमाटर कांदा मिरची
असले मग आणि किती असेल दवर म्हाका असले बडे
हां आता असली मेळपाक तुका मुश्कील आहे कित्याक पयलीं आमी सगळं बनवून खाताले आता आमी सगळें डेवलप जातले पोळी मेळटा पोळी
பொண்ணு மாப்பிள்ளை ஆயிட்டு போறாங்க
So I will create this sculpture and then I will take this sculpture of mine back to the fish market, back to the man from whom I bought this board, and I will request him to use it for a few more days so that some few more marks of the knife while he cuts his fish come onto my sculpture. So this will be a joint project of me as a sculptor and the man who cuts the fish as my associate. Ask him to cut some more fish on it and then marks will come. I will first buy a bit. I have worked as a doctor for the fisher folk, and I had a very close relationship with the fishing community. And their life is so much inseparable from the ocean that I decided to create some installation actually using fishermen as my material. I made the fishermen pose with their hands outstretched and create the impression of a fish. I made them pose, making the impression of a boat. And I made many different installations using fishermen. And I think these are some of the installations I love because perhaps for the first time I was using human beings as a material. And then I had plans to go up in the mountains and work actually with the sadhus and create some installations. I have not yet done that, but I am planning to do that. The Inquisition was set up in 1560 and was only lifted in 1812 because of the interventions and pressures from the British. Inquisition was essentially directed against the new Catholics, the neo-Catholics, those who were forced to accept Catholic religion, accepted Catholic religion, but continued with their old rites and rituals. And the Portuguese basically wanted to bring about a complete cultural change, and they wanted them to follow all the dictates of the Catholic faith and a European lifestyle. So anything connected with the old Hindu faith was sort of discouraged, and if you followed that, you were punished. And the punishment was from all kind of tortures, water torture, fire torture, to burning alive, which is called auto de fe. There was a court of inquisition, and it was called Hodlegar, the big house, because people were scared to even pronounce the name of the Inquisition house, the court of inquisition. and it was called the Hodlegar, the big house. And this was very near the Church of St. Francis of Assisi in Old Goa. The building does not exist anymore, but a table from the Court of Inquisition is there in the Museum of Goa, the Government Museum of Goa. And this table, when I looked at it, I was taken back by the legs of this table. The legs of the table were very special. There were 4 legs in front and 3 at the back. The legs in front had figures like Satan, and this is the leg of the Inquisition table, which I carved in a larger form. The original leg is much smaller, and so this is the leg of the Inquisition table. First Inquisition actually was set against the Christians, by the Christians in south of France, because those who belonged to a particular sect who did not follow the so-called rules of the Roman Catholic were actually tortured, and then the Jews were tortured. The Jews who accepted Christianity and continued to follow the Jewish traditions were tortured in Spain and in Portugal, and then the Inquisition arrived here. And another tragedy is Inquisition arrived here in 1560, and this arrived because of a letter written by Saint Francis Xavier to the Pope that please set up the court of Inquisition here, because those who have accepted Christianity are not following Christianity properly. And he, Saint Francis Xavier, is supposed to have converted 7 lakhs people here. That's what some records say. I do not know the authenticity of it, but this is what happened here. As a painter, as a landscape painter, I used to paint the ocean, I used to paint the boats. And then one day, I decided to break the walls of my studio and head straight for the beach. And then the seashore became my canvas. I consider myself a Sindbad in the world of art, always trying to explore new concepts, new media, new materials. I do not know. Sometimes the materials find me, sometimes I find the materials, sometimes the materials give me a concept, sometimes the concept finds the material. But my first installation on the beach, which I did using sand, was almost accidental. I was very much influenced by Andy Goldsworthy, Richard Long, and many other land artists. And I had created a large disc which was supposed to be a lamp for a wall. With my lamp, I headed for the beach. I dug a big crater in the sand about 2 meters in diameter and placed my disc in the middle with the electrical connection which I took from a beach shack under this disc. And when I put the lights on, I was surprised myself. I got a feeling that I almost have created a new planet. That's why I called it the 10th planet. This was my first installation, and this led to my experiments with sand and light. I created many other installations where I could dig holes in the sand, put some shells on the borders of these holes, and light up the holes with electrical bulbs. From this on, I got started getting fascinated with shells. The installations which I did with shells were very fascinating, because when I planted shells on the beach and tried to create the impression of the ocean by sometimes putting the inside of the shell in front, sometimes putting the backside of the shell in front, I was creating an ocean using shells. My inspiration was the ocean, my medium was given to me by the ocean, my theme was the ocean, and my canvas was also the ocean. I created an installation on a beach here during low tide. I created the form of a moon using shells. And then I waited for the high tide to come and cover the moon which I had created with the tide. The creator of the tides, the moon, was covered by the ocean itself. From shells, I moved on to many other mediums, many other materials. The boats started fascinating me. The navigational history of Goa is very important. And the boats which the fishermen used, which are made in wood, with 2 planks of wood joined with coir, the textures on these boats were all fascinating for me. And slowly the fishermen were abandoning the wooden boats and buying fiberglass boats, because the fiberglass boats were lighter, the fiberglass boats were cheaper, did not need any maintenance, and consumed much less fuel, much less petrol. The fishermen were using fiberglass boats, and the old boats sort of started interesting me, and I started buying the old boats from them. When I buy a boat which is used for about 50, 60 years, this boat has a story in itself. The boat has drawn nets laden with fish on board. There are marks of the ropes on the boat. The boats perhaps remember the songs of the fishermen. The boats remember the numerous expeditions of the fishermen. And when I use an old boat, a very interesting thing happens. I actually am using the history of that boat as a medium for my sculpture. I had one interesting installation in Dubai, because there was a long trade between the Arab world and the west coast of India, right from 2500 BC. So I carried sculptures created out of boats from Goa to the shores of Dubai, basically celebrating that history of navigation. Water is a very important issue. Water is going to be a major issue, major problem in the future, potable water, because though the large percentage of the earth is made with water, the drinking water is very minimal, very, very small percentage. And I wanted to create some kind of water drops, sculptures of water drops. And then one day I was just going to a factory which were making drums for the washing machines. And the drums for the washing machines, as you know, have holes. And the little discs, when they make the holes, is a waste product. So I found myself just collecting this waste product from this factory and using it. These were stainless steel discs, stainless steel bindis, and this I used for creating some water drops. And I have made many other works using this connected with the theme of water. So here again, there was some connection with my theme and the material, because the material has a close contact with water in the washing machine drums.